Hello everybody, it's Keith. Help support the Northeast scene and declare yourself a member today. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast medium of choice. Rate us and leave a review. Every little bit helps. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It has every podcast episode plus other exclusive content. Like and leave a comment. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TheNEScene. Also, continue to write us at northeastscene@gmail.com. We want to share your experiences as well. And now, here's the show.
You are a cynical bastard, you know that?
To reclaim the American dream and reaffirm that fundamental truth that out of many we are one.
You hear that line? Line's for you. Don't make me laugh. We're one people. It's a myth created by Thomas Jefferson. Oh, now you never go with Jefferson, huh? My friend, Jefferson's an American saint because he wrote the words, all men are created equal. Words he clearly didn't believe since he allowed his own children to live in slavery. He was a rich wine snob who was sick of paying taxes to the Brits. So yeah, he wrote some lovely words and aroused the rabble, and they went out and died for those words. This guy wants to tell me we're living in a community. Don't make me laugh. I'm living in America, and in America, you're on your own. America's not a country. It's just a business. Now fucking pay me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene Podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
And we're back. And tonight on the show, Ryan Parrish from Hopesfall. Tommy, I'm very invested in Hopesfall. I hope to talk to every member of the band at some point. And Ryan has had a storied music career. He was in Celebrity. He's in the band In Parallel now, who are awesome. They had a great record come out last year. Yeah, 2020, called Fashioner. So we'll talk to him about that. And we'll hear some more of the Hopesfall story from Ryan's point of view, and it's going to be great.
I'm excited. That was one of those bands, I don't know if, like, when you first heard them, did you get excited like, oh, this, I heard This Day Forward kind of sound when I heard them, and I was like, I've been waiting for something like this.
Yeah, remember the story where, you know, that really long post-rock kind of breakdown in End of an Era?
Yes. Yeah.
Their first show on tour with This Day Forward, I was there.
Oh, that's the hungover story.
Yeah, and I was sitting outside, and I was entranced by that post-rock break in the song, like the Sirens song, you know, that the sailors would hear, and I was like, "What is that?" And it was just a slow build from there.
That's it, and they've gone from a band that what was that? That No Wings to Speak of, right?
Yes.
Then I kind of lost track of them for a little while.
Yeah.
Then I remember the Satellite Years.
Yes.
Then you turned me on to Magnetic North and Arbiter. You were the one that was like, you got to listen to these because it's roughly the same. How do you put that? It's the same feeling of the band. You get that same kind of like heaviness mixed with kind of melody, but done in a more mature kind of way, I guess is the way to explain it.
Magnetic North is like, it's much darker, and there's still some growth in there, I guess. Like Arbiter is such a polished record.
Yeah.
In every way. The song structure is perfect. Everything is like perfect. So it's like they came all back together and were like, this is it. We figured this shit out. Yeah. Not to say that there's anything wrong with Magnetic North. It's just, it's a different sound. It's Magnetic North and Arbiter are my two favorites at this stage. It changes month to month, but those are my top two favorite records of theirs right now.
I don't have a ton of their songs that are saved on my original hard drive. So I have all the stuff from No Wings to Speak of on there. So whenever I make like a mix to go to the skate park with, because I have like one of those little not iPod Shuffle, like the one that's a little bit big, like the iPod mini ones. Nano, that one. I have a bunch of songs on there, and I'm always like, oh, great, fucking Hopesfall's on. Like, that's one of those ones that comes on, and it's like, I don't have to skip it.
Yeah, and Ryan's story is going to be good because he was out of the band right after Satellite Years came out, and then he came back into the fold and recorded with the band for their latest song, Hall of the Sky. So it's going to be a different perspective, and I'm excited to hear his story because we've never spoken to him before. So that's going to be good. The big news of this week is, have you read about this, Tommy? The police officer who killed George Floyd was convicted of murder. Did you see that in the news?
Yeah, I saw that. No, I heard it on the radio when they announced that I was driving home from work.
What are your thoughts? Let's do a rundown.
I have a little bit of a hard time with so the thing is that like when you read the facts of the case, now I'll be real honest, I have been in and out on this case. But I've listened to a decent amount of kind of both left, right, and center in terms of commentary on it. Mm-hmm. The one thing that seems to be kind of true from everybody that's coming out, or everybody that was talking about it, was the defense's case was about 8 hours long, whereas the prosecution's case was, I think, 7 days. Like it was a significant amount of time. The one thing that did kind of bother me is I did see one of the use of force experts come in, and he was talking about, things that you can use in terms of subduing someone and how to restrain people and what are the techniques that are taught, what's acceptable based on the, person's behavior. And one of the things that kind of blew my mind was, the prosecution called this witness, and the guy goes on the stand and, they're asking him questions. And in one of the parts, he was like, well, in terms of use of force, what are the things that are allowed? And he's like, well, actually, Officer Chauvin could have used a taser. And I'm like, why the fuck would you bring this guy up? Like, you're telling me that he could have actually done something even more severe than what he had already done. And it just seemed like, why would you? I as soon as I heard that, I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. But again, I'm not a huge.
So give me your like abridged final thoughts.
I agree with all the charges that were brought. I just thought the conviction on the second degree murder. Remember, he's the defendant, so all they had to present was reasonable doubt. I heard a couple things, at least in terms of testimony, that made me go, "Oh, okay, that's kind of iffy." Which at least presented a little bit of doubt in my mind. But again, this is the thing. It's a jury.
Hold on. So you question the charge of second degree murder?
No, I don't question it. I question the guilty verdict with it.
Why?
Because they only had to, the defense's job is to prove reasonable doubt. I think they presented enough evidence to say, like, okay, he didn't act with, malice of forethought. He didn't do it intentionally.
Did you miss the video where he was kneeling on the guy's neck on the street?
I did, and then I saw the other video from the other angle where he's across his shoulders. So I don't know. I have a hard time with this, Keith. I'll be real honest with you. Like, as someone that worked in a law firm for a good chunk of time, it's hard for me to kind of divorce myself from the emotionality of it, because I look at it as like, look, that dude's a dickhead. He needs to go to jail. But I feel like people need to be convicted of the correct crimes. I feel like I think more in line with what should have been done is something like negligent homicide. Like his ignorant.
Oh, so you're saying a different. Oh, so you're coming at it from a law degree. You're saying like a different charge of homicide.
Yeah, he killed that guy 100%. But it was through his negligence of actions. He should not have used that type of force. The other thing is that.
Well, hold on. Let me get in on this.
Yeah, go.
I'm happy that there was a murder charge, because we all saw the video, and that move that cops do where they just kneel on a guy's neck needs to be banned immediately. That's insane. And I read some stories where these guys knew each other. I think they worked together at a nightclub.
Bodyguards, or they were bouncers at a nightclub.
Yeah, and there was some beef there, so there may have been some premeditated aggression or something like that. I don't know. I'm just speculating. And of course, there's the bigger problem of just racism in this country. I mean, there's no denying that. I mean, the other bigger issue of the way policing is done in this country, cops who plant drugs on people to meet quotas. I read that cops carry toy guns around to justify shootings. Like they'll shoot somebody and drop a toy gun next to them and be like, "Oh, I thought it was a real gun." Can you even comprehend the level of insanity that we're dealing with?
I think that has to be like, I would like to see like something where like a police officer actually said that. In my head, I'm going like, there's lots of anecdotal things where people say, hey, the cops did this and the cops did that. Like when I first, did you hear the story about the kid in Columbus that was shot? Or not, was it? No, it was maybe Minnesota. It was a 13-year-old and he was
Honestly,
shot.
it's hard to keep out. It's hard to keep up with the number of shooting stories, but yeah, I think so.
But it was like, when I first heard the story was cop shot a 13-year-old young man that was unarmed. And then I stole the story afterwards, and it was like, not only did the kid have a gun, the video from the body cam footage shows him throwing the gun. Like he like turns at the last second when the officer raises his gun and tries to kind of like throw it behind his back so you can't see it. And the cop sees that motion and discharges his weapon. So like, I think one of the most important things that we can all do as people is kind of wait for judgment on things and wait till we hear all the facts and make police accountable. Like those body cam things, that's going to save people's lives, because if people know they're on camera, they're going to act in a way that makes sure that they wouldn't ever see charges based on their, negligence or behavior.
No, they're not held accountable, and they turn the body cams off or lose the footage, and then the police union will sweep all that under the rug. And one thing I didn't realize, how they put the black band when quote unquote like another officer gets killed? That's to cover their badge number, so they can't be reported.
I never heard that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I thought it was like a funeral thing, like where they like.
I think it's a double-edged sword. But listen, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. I don't know if it can ever change, because everything in this country is so inherently corrupt. But I have hope, I guess. And can we also mention Nancy Pelosi saying his sacrifice about George Floyd? Like, we thank you for your sacrifice. He didn't sacrifice shit. He was killed.
Yeah.
He didn't say like, "Oh, I'm going to do this for all people." No, he was killed.
I also think of there was that story I saw about that representative from California, Maxine Waters, and she was in Minnesota, and she said something like, this was before the verdict was read. She was like, we need a first-degree murder charge. And I was like, holy shit. First of all, he wasn't charged with first-degree murder. You can't expect that. And then the second one was, she said something like, we need to get more confrontational about this. I'm like, look, people are already on edge about this. In terms of like inciting people to act irrationally, shit, dude, like you're an elected official. You have to choose your words more carefully.
I agree with that.
And I saw, like CNN's fairly left-leaning, Fox News.
I agree with her. I mean, not you. But continue.
So, even CNN was like, what is Maxine Waters doing? And I was like, holy shit. Like, that seems like, when I saw the things that they were trying to impeach Trump for like in terms of the Capitol riot, in terms of incitement, I was like, okay, yeah, I can actually see some of the things that they were talking about, his wording, his lack of direction, his kind of vagueness with certain things. I was like, fuck, man, that's kind of up in the air. With hers, it's like, no, that's pretty clear cut. Like, that's pretty much inciting people to fucking go out there and cause some mayhem, man. Like, that's fucking wild.
There's other news too, and that is Tommy has purchased how many new pairs of Costco pants?
Well, I didn't buy it. My wife bought them because I was in work, but she bought 3 pair. So I tried on all 3. I'm keeping 2.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a grand total of $31.99.
I didn't realize they were from Costco. You sent me the ad, and they were like, "These pants are $14.99." And I zoomed in, and it said Costco, and I was like, "Oh, he did it!" New Costco pants. So Tommy's on cloud 9 right now.
Dude, I'm hype, and I bought a new sweater from eBay. I'm so hype.
What kind?
Polo. I have always, like, whenever I buy like dress stuff, I always buy polo stuff, because just in my thing, they seem to last longer and they hold up to wear pretty well. And I'm pretty rough on my clothes.
Yeah, me too. I wear them for weeks and then finally switch my outfit.
I think my thing is like I use a lot of, not a lot, but I use chemicals at work all the time to erase the board. I use that alcohol spray to wipe the whiteboard down.
Yeah.
And that wreaks havoc on any type of colors, because it really is just like isopropyl alcohol and some other, like, benzene or some other shit in it. It's not, it's really terrible. And I get it all over my shirts and my clothes. And then when I'm teaching now, because I'm on camera, I kind of have my back up against the whiteboard. So not only am I like getting it on my sleeves while I'm writing, I'm literally wiping my back on the board. Like, because I came home the one day and Kelly's like, what the fuck is on the back of your shirt? It was just dry erase marker all over the back of my fucking shirt from leaning up against the board after I had modeled a problem.
Taking that into consideration, the Costco clothing makes a lot more sense.
Right? It's like disposable.
Yeah. You got to keep replacing it. It's not disposable. Our show and our guest, Ryan Parrish, who is up next. So enjoy the conversation.
Wonderful segue. I love it.
All right, folks, we're here now with Ryan Parrish. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Ryan, do you know that several members of Hopesfall have already been on this show?
Josh and Adam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear any of their episodes?
I did. I listened to both.
Oh, see, I was hoping you would say no, so I could make a joke and say, "Oh, so you didn't hear what they said."
I listen to everything. I'm kind of one of those nerds, so I like to be in the loop,
And if it was about me, I would absolutely listen to it because I'm on that level. Like, if Tommy was on a podcast, I'd be listening to every word, like writing it down. Like, what did he say? What is he doing?
I've listened to my own as well, mainly just to judge myself.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here, and let's start out. Let's talk about your past a little bit and get to know you. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Mississippi, in a town called Jackson. It's really the only city to speak of in the state, but I lived there until I was about eight and a half, and then my dad got transferred to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I spent my formative years, I guess they say. So from 8.5 until, just after college, I lived there. And then I moved to Nashville in 2003. So kind of been a tour around the Southeast for me growing up.
Right. So in North Carolina, now Josh mentioned that you went to, I think it was a school or summer camp with him and maybe Adam as well.
Yeah. We all went to the same church growing up as kids, and, became pretty fast friends. I felt like we were kind of the oddballs of the group. And I think we kind of sensed that at a very early age. I don't know. I felt like we were kind of tuned into, like, we didn't fit in with the cool kids or the jocks or any of that. So,
right. When we were growing up, it was still jocks versus everybody else, I guess. And if you were into alternative music or anything like that, you were still a weirdo.
No, totally. I mean, my first memory of Josh was being at this camp that our church went to called Camp Willow Run, and it was on this lake. And its gimmick was all of the cabins were train cars, so you slept in these little train cars. And as a kid, it's like super cool, right? But Josh and I were in a cabin together one year, and I think that's kind of when we started to really, hit it off and realize we had similar interests.
Yeah. And how did you feel about, now I went to 12 years of Catholic school myself. How did you feel about religion and the belief systems and all that in general at that age? Like, for me, I don't know. I was really impressionable and just behind on a lot of things,
Sure.
like younger than my age. So I believed everything and I didn't know anything. I figured out everything way later than everybody else. And then when I got up the courage to like ask friends about things, like I was like, wait, like, are you gonna wait till you get married to have sex? And my friend was like, no.
Yeah.
And then I kind of realized, like, oh, like maybe that's, I don't know. I guess that's when I kind of started to question things. And I guess by the time I was in high school, I just didn't care anymore. How was it for you?
My first memories growing up are in the church. My family, pretty conservative and, deep people of faith. No matter kind of where you fall on that spectrum of belief, my parents are very faithful people. So, from a young age, I mean, what you're taught is what you believe, right? And, growing up between, Mississippi and North Carolina, there are vast differences between the two places. I know a lot of people kind of lump the Southeast into this one bucket, but really all the states are pretty different. Mississippi being the most impoverished state in the country. So when I moved to Charlotte, Charlotte's a banking town. I mean, it's the second largest banking center in the US behind New York. So there's a lot of money in that town. And I think with a lot of money comes a lot of shelter, from differing belief systems, differing economic scales. The area in Charlotte that we grew up was pretty protected, pretty nice. We didn't run into a lot of things that seemed scary. I don't really know where I fall on the faith spectrum now. I don't have a good answer to that. I'd say when we started touring and seeing other parts of the country and seeing that people live differently, I think that's when my eyes started to open up a little bit and consider some other things. I think finding punk rock, specifically hardcore, I wasn't really a punk rock kid. I didn't really care for punk.
Same.
I kind of jumped right to hard. I went from alternative rock to hardcore,
Me too, yeah.
And when I found hardcore, everyone has a belief in hardcore. That's kind of the whole thing. It's like every band has their kind of agenda. And I think once we started hanging out with other bands and other kids in the scene, it kind of expanded my mind. And, I've kind of been on that. I mean, I'm 42 now. I'd say I'm still on that journey of self-discovery and what I believe is real and what is not real. And I don't know. I think for the first time, like right around when I hit 40, I started to be okay with not knowing.
Yes.
And that's kind of where I stand now. I don't know. I think this may be way too intense of a thing to start off with.
Absolutely not. No,
we love this.
We love this stuff.
I think, a finite mind, which is what we have. We have these vessels that we live within, and we live within our own minds. It seems wildly egocentric to believe that we truly know why we're here.
Right.
I'm open to the idea of, I don't want to say magic. I'm open to the idea of there are things at work that we do not understand because we cannot perceive everything. But I'm also not saying I have the answers because I don't. I'm just a guy trying to make it through the day and provide for my family. And I think I'm a newish dad. I've got a 16-month-old at home, and when I think about the meaning of my life is to serve the people that are, in my family, to serve my daughter and to serve my wife and to be a good friend to my friends and try to find meaning there and kind of leave the big questions, I don't know, maybe unanswered, and just try to focus on those aspects of my life that I do know have meaning.
Yep.
Yeah, and I kind of have the same approach. I was staunchly anti-religion because, I don't know, you kind of learn that in hardcore and those kind of circles, and that's okay. But I had to find meaning in something because I fell to such dark depths of addiction and alcoholism and all that stuff. And, I was just very egocentric, narcissistic. I think everyone's talking about me. I think I can do everything myself and all that stuff. And to get out of all that stuff, I had to rely on others or powers greater than myself, if you will. So I acknowledge that I am not the center of the universe. Like you, I say, I don't know. I don't know what's out there. Sometimes there's awesome coincidences. Is it a coincidence or is it not? I don't know. But as long as I don't rely on just me and put my faith in something else, whether it's the universe or people or a volcano or whatever the fuck that's not me, then then it works.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I appreciate the idea that you have that idea of service. I think that's a huge thing that people, especially nowadays, miss out on. When I went to high school, every day I passed a wooden sign that said, "Enter to learn, leave to serve." And the whole idea is that you were learning how to be someone who gave back, someone who did something that was productive. The other thing I really appreciate is that people are like, especially Ryan, you kind of mentioned this, is that being fluid with things, being okay with like, I don't know the answers. Maybe they'll come in a day. Maybe they won't ever come, but I know that I have a singular purpose right now. And my purpose is to take care of my family.
Totally relate to that perspective. And, service isn't really it's not really a sexy word in Western culture. It's, it's very, as we've seen over the past year, people are concerned with themselves. And that's been something that's been eye-opening over the past year, living through the pandemic, is just the sheer selfishness of so many people in our country. And
yeah, here you hear my hustle and my grind and all that other cringy stuff.
I just want to get groceries, man, and I want to I want to do it in the safest way possible. I put this little piece of cloth over my face. It's an inconvenience, obviously, but it's really not that big of a deal. And then you see people that think, it's tyranny to wear a mask and to think about someone other than themselves, and a lot. I'd say, belief, the idea of kind of the American ideal, that cowboy mythology, of me against the world. It's really, for me, it's really been turned up on its head over the past year, and it's made me want to be more service oriented. And I'm selfish too, just like every other human on the planet. But I really do, in those moments when I'm thinking about myself, I want to try to redirect it to thinking about the needs of my daughter or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's my soapbox.
Well, no, that's good stuff. So you're going so I'm going to circle back now. That was a strong start, gentlemen. I love that. And I don't have a good segue, so I just had to acknowledge it.
Oh, it's okay. But we can totally just like shift gears. It's all good.
Yeah. So I'm shifting the gear. We're back in school. You're with Josh. You're getting into some good music. Talk about how you started playing music and some of your early days of bands.
Okay. I'm thinking back. Like I was in band in elementary school, all the way through high school. I played the saxophone. So I guess that's where I started. It's how I learned how to read music and understand music, and, playing with, God, I don't remember how many people were in band, over 20, 25, 30 people, simultaneously trying to play something that sounded decent. So, music was early love for me. I don't know what it was. I just I gravitated toward it. But I got my first guitar, I want to say I was like 14, maybe 13 or 14. And my mom got me just a cheap acoustic. And I started taking lessons down the street at this little music store in Matthews, North Carolina, called Howard Music. And the guy, Keith, there was like he was in his 20s, so obviously older than me. And his touch points were bands like Rush and Yes, and, some of the more psychedelic sides of the Beatles and Zeppelin. So I learned a lot of that stuff from him early on. And I have a deep love for that style of music because of that. But, at home, I was listening to, alternative rock. It was the heyday of that, when I started playing guitar. So yeah, that's when it kind of started. Like the real hardcore love of music was like I feel like most people find that when they're a teenager. But yeah, I bought some tab books, I bought Siamese Dream tab book, which is probably my favorite album of all time, and just learned it back and front. And, then I started to develop an ear that was decent enough to start figuring stuff out myself. I just sit with my CD player and, all right, I want to learn this hum song. There's not a hum tablature book, because they weren't a big enough band at that point. And I'd pluck around and try to figure out, the pod or whatever by hum, and started to get decent at it. And, once you start, I felt like for me, once I had confidence that my ear was decent enough, then I started to get confident in wanting to just write my own stuff, and I probably started that when I was around 16. I remember I really started to try to write riffs and come up with, song structures and that kind of thing.
That's a similar trajectory for me. And I remember that Smashing Pumpkins tab book, and I just couldn't even comprehend it. I could barely read tabs. And I remember figuring out that lead in Today.
Yeah.
It was like I discovered radiation. I was like, what? Like, I mean, I just was blown away that I could figure out some of this stuff.
Yeah. It's like, unlocking a part of your mind, it sounds hokey when I say it out loud like that, but it did. It like unlocked. It's like I gained access to this thing in my brain, that I didn't know was there. And when you're playing guitar, you're literally connecting the two hemispheres of your brain. The right and left side start talking to one another. And any time that you're, that's why walking is so meditative. It's bipedal stimulation. So I think I don't have a very quiet mind. I have a very active, almost borderline neurotic mind. So when I play guitar, it kind of turns that off. It's like I'm not worrying about the next thing that I need to get done. I can just kind of zone out, I guess.
It's that, you know what I was going to say, Ryan, I have the same idea. Like when I'm doing something that like playing guitar or skateboarding, when I have a singular focus, it seems to quiet all the other thoughts that I have of like deadlines or whatever I have to do. Like, it's just like, no, I'm focused just on this thing.
Yeah. It's the simplest things to me. I don't know. I think when I recenter and I go to the simple thing, that is usually the way to kind of quiet the anxiety or quiet, whatever crazy thoughts are bouncing around in my brain.
Yeah. Now, I haven't played guitar in too long. So now I'm just doing something at all times, which is probably not healthy, whether it be working or working on the podcast or playing a video game or watching a live stream of something. It's just constant activity.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to get in that routine, I mean that's kind of the way our world is set up,
Yes.
Everything's so compartmentalized. And I don't know, I think that's one thing that I've, with the pandemic going on, that's one thing that I've really loved. It's really slowed my life down. And I've been working from home for a year. We've had no child care. It's really kind of made the days special because, my daughter Remy, she kind of like recenters me if I'm like stressed out at work. It's like I can just kind of like turn around and look at her, and she's just stoked on like the blocks that she's playing with. So it's a real good kind of like salve. And I don't know. So for me, like the pandemic's been really difficult, but in the same way, it's been filled with like I don't know, just like more patience, which is great,
Yeah.
I don't
Big
feel like
time.
I have to like go do all these different things because I'm just trying to keep my family healthy and safe. So
I love not going anywhere.
dude,
It's
I'm
great.
I'm a homebody. So I mean, I'm built for this kind of life.
And then if there's like a social function you don't want to go to, you have an instant out. It's
Always.
so good.
It's amazing. And for someone like me, that's like I'm an introvert. Like,
Yeah, me too.
I always hate having to say no, and I don't have to say no right now.
And you have a kid too. So for the next, I don't know, 18 years, you have an excuse.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want to go somewhere, the kid. Oh yeah.
And it's funny because I have a good friend who's like, dude, you have the ultimate out now. And I'm like, I do, and the cool thing about it is, it's valid. It's like a valid, it's like she has to be in bed at this time. I don't have a choice. That's when she goes to bed, and I have to kind of follow that schedule, so it's kind of, in a weird way, nice to have, my life revolves around her needs. And I think that's been a good life lesson for me, for sure.
No, I was going to say that's one of those things with having kids. It allows you to focus on ultimately what's the most important thing. And if it really kind of, if you have any kind of ego or you have any kind of self-centeredness, it immediately goes out the window.
Do either of you guys have kids?
I have
Tommy's
3.
got a whole gang. He's got 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got your hands full, man.
Yeah. I have twin 7-year-olds and an 18-month-old.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
I don't have any kids, but I would like to get a cat one day, maybe 2.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't think kids are in my future, but you never know.
That's okay, man. I mean, it's definitely, I say to people, it's like, it's not for everybody.
No.
And, but if you do enter into it, whether by choice or by accident, it really, for me, as someone who was a fence riding dad, I didn't really know if I wanted to be a dad. You're right. It decimates the ego, but for me, it's done it in the best way possible.
So wait, you said you played a lot of saxophone. Does this mean we might get a good sax solo on a Hopesfall or maybe an In Parallel record one day?
It probably would fit more within Parallel, but
yeah.
Nothing's off the table with me, man. I haven't picked my saxophone up in probably 2 decades, but
Whoa.
I do still have it. It's at my parents' house in Charlotte. So
maybe you'll get started again after this conversation.
Yeah, who knows?
So Hopesfall. Let's talk about some of the early days. So you and Josh and Adam start up this thing with Ryan. Ryan was the first singer, right?
Doug was the first singer.
That's what I meant. Yeah, yep. You're Ryan. Yeah.
Doug was a friend of the group. I mean, that's kind of the story of Hopesfall. Really, it's just been, no matter what era of the band it's been, we've always sourced members from friends. It was never like post a bulletin or any of that stuff. It was like, oh, you're my friend, you play this, come on. But yeah, man, I mean, that's been a long time ago. That was 98 when we started. I was a freshman in college. Adam was still in high school. Josh and I are the same age, so he was a freshman too. Doug was a year or 2 older than us. And our first bass player, Chris, was 3 years older than us. We had a band before that was really just like a high school band, so we weren't like playing proper shows or anything. Mm-hmm. And that was more of like an alternative rock band. And then when we started to get into hardcore, I started to become interested in that. And
what were some of the bands that you were listening to at the time that you drew influence from? Because I see a lot of parallels with our whole scene, and This Day Forward was a big band from around our area, and
great guys, man.
Yeah,
much great
they
guys.
Are. And I think both bands early on sounded similar, Hopesfall and This Day Forward, and we were all suburban kids. So I'm like trying to find the parallel, like of what everyone was listening to, where things kind of coalesced.
Well, I mean, my true love is alternative rock. That is like, if I had to listen to one genre of music, it would be that. Mm-hmm. Because that's what I found when I was a teenager, and so the Pumpkins and Hum and Failure and Soundgarden and all of those bands, everybody knows the bands from the 90s, they all impacted me in a massive way. But as the 90s moved on, everybody knows the story. The music started to get shitty again in the mainstream because the labels, were just signing any band that they thought could break. And the band started to become watered down and cloned copies of the things that came before them. So, as that started to happen, I started to go underground. I was like, well, there's other music out there that's not on the radio. And, we just started diving into that. And, when we found, what I would call second wave emo, in hardcore, I loved it immediately. So the first hardcore bands I remember listening to, Strong Arm, Shilude, Refuse, Snapcase, Overcome. Those are all the bands I remember listening to initially, that kind of like.
And those were all the bands we were listening to. Like those, a lot of those bands were the first bands I listened to. So I think we're drawn from the same pool of influences.
Yeah, it's like that mid to late 90s era of hardcore was really the sweet spot to me. It was still super underground. Social media hadn't like blown up the genre yet, and made it this huge thing. It felt very secretive. Shows were in VFW halls and like just random rooms that people could rent, So it felt like while the music scared me at first, but because I'm a deep lover of melody, I think I just love guitar melody. I think what drew me into hardcore was that secretive vibe. It felt like I was in on something that no one else was in on.
Yeah.
And, the aggressiveness of the music was what appealed to me before the music did. It was tapping into something in my head, and in my heart, some of that anger that I was feeling at that time in my life and kind of gave it a voice, So that's what drew me to the genre. And simultaneously emo as well. It's like the more fragile version of that, which I still love. A lot of those bands had huge impacts on me.
Yeah, and the thing about Hopesfall that is good, there's always been a lot of melody. I got into Hopesfall a little later when I was 20 years old. I don't know if I would have liked it as much if I discovered it when I was 16 or 17, because then it was just heavy, heavy, heavy. It's got to be really heavy. Or maybe I would have, who knows? But there's always been a lot of melody in Hopesfall songs, even back to the first record, and No Wings to Speak of especially. There's just, it was never like straight up mosh. There was always a ton of melody in it.
Yeah, I think we just weren't drawing from that pool of influence. Josh and I didn't listen to metal, still don't listen to metal. It doesn't really appeal to me at all, true metal. So post-hardcore, melodic hardcore, emo, space rock, those were kind of what we were pulling from. And, I think just that's the way we played guitar, because we played guitar together and kind of taught each other how to play in a way. That's kind of just what came out. We didn't really think about it. We weren't like saying, let's be super melodic and have no mosh parts. We just kind of wrote what came to us, and it just so happened to sound like that. I credit a lot of that to, just my love of space rock and alt rock, but also the South Florida bands. That's what interested me. I mean, I heard Strong Arm and Shilude, and there were no mosh parts in any of their songs, and I was like, there's just like crazy like song structure, interesting arrangements, but it's really beautiful. Like their guitar work was just really beautiful to me, and I kind of wanted to like just smash the two of those things together,
Yeah.
And then throw in a little emo too, because there's definitely some emo parts on some Hopesfall songs. So,
oh, absolutely. It's the perfect mix of everything. You guys really tapped into something. And I started out with the melodic moshy stuff. And around 99, I discovered, I guess it would be second wave emo, Promise Ring, Mineral, Texas is the Reason, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. And that's really, I really got deep into that. I still love those bands a lot. And they basically taught me how to play guitar, and I don't know, it was just music that I deeply, deeply, and still deeply connect with.
Yeah, that Texas is the Reason record really resonated, and it kind of opened a thing in my brain a little bit, because it was still heavy, and I really gravitated bands like Braid, and that kind of had more intricate arrangements, and kind of noodly weird guitar parts, and and then more like the slow core stuff with a lot of space, like Karate. That band like kind of changed how I thought about music. But yeah, I loved 99% of the stuff that was popular then.
Yeah. So Hopesfall signs with Trustkill. We're going to record the Satellite Years, which I don't know how you feel about it from your perspective, but I think this is an important record. I would say maybe even a landmark record, because not a lot of bands have done this. I think you guys were one of the first, if not the first, to blend those elements of alternative music with hardcore, and it's still an album that I love and a ton of people love to this day, and it still pops up in a lot of best melodic hardcore, or best post-hardcore, or best whatever records. And yeah, I still listen to it to today. So
that's awesome.
Now, I guess you didn't realize any of this going in to record it, right? Like the
No.
effect it would have, or any kind of future predictions or anything like that?
No, that was it's weird because that's the record for most Hopesfall fans, right? Is Satellite Years, and I can't inflict or influence anyone's perception of the record, and that's what's really cool about music is you hear it differently than I hear it. You have memories tied to it that I don't have tied to it, and I respect that, But for me personally, that was a really hard record to make. I was in a very bad place when we made that record. And when I listen to it, that's what I hear because that was my experience. That being said, I was very proud of what we were making. And I did feel like I felt like we were doing something unique. But I had felt that, I think maybe because my head was clearer when we made No Wings. That's the one for me. That's the one for me. And because it felt like we were on the edge. The band was not well known in the scene. We were starting to get some buzz in the scene, and No Wings just felt like, I just remember making it and feeling like, yes, like just that energy that I felt when we were making it. And
yes.
So that's the one for me that feels special. It's not that Satellite Years is not special to me. It is.
There was just stuff going on.
There was just stuff going on, and that was band stuff. 2 weeks after we made the record, I was out. So
was the stuff that you were dealing with during the Satellite Years strictly band stuff that you had to sort through?
No, it was just early 20s. You don't know who you are stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was in a long-term relationship, that was pretty serious. I graduated college. I'd moved back in with my parents, partly to do the band, so we could actually afford to do it. We got signed by Trustkill, which was kind of a whirlwind thing in my head, although it's kind of foggy. And we got shipped off to make a record with our hero, Matt from Hum, and I was the intimidation level there was real for me because I was a young kid, and this was a guy that arguably changed my life musically.
Yes.
So there was all of that swirling around. It's like, do I want to move and be with this person that I was dating at the time? Do I want to pursue a career? What would that even look like? I don't even know. I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to live with my parents because that feels weird. And then just some of the stuff going on in the band creatively and just emotionally, it was just all of that stuff kind of smashing together, really, all at the same time. And looking back on it, you have more clarity, but I was just I was depressed. I mean, that's what it was. I just didn't know it, and I don't know what contributed to that depression. I just think I was confused. I think I was a confused kid.
Yeah.
You know,
So 2 weeks after the record is out, you said you're out of the band.
that's my recollection. Yes, it could have been.
So what happened? Did you leave? Like, was it not working?
Well, we made the record, right? We spent 2 weeks with Matt
Mm-hmm.
in his studio in Tolono, Illinois, which is the middle of nowhere, and we had some time off in between tracking and mixing and mastering, which the mixing and mastering was going to happen a couple of weeks after with Keith Cleversley, who mixed and mastered "You'd Prefer an Astronaut," which is Hum's probably biggest well-known record. So in the interim, I had some time off, so I went to go see the girl I was dating at the time to spend time with her, and that's when I got a phone call, and it was hey, we're going to go on the road this summer without you, and that was kind of that. Then I was kind of adrift for the better part of 2002. Didn't really know what was next.
How did you feel after that? Just immediately after that, and then seeing Hopesfall go on to tour and all that stuff, because I couldn't handle anything at that age. I was completely emotionally a wreck, very vindictive, very self-centered. So had I been in that situation, I don't know what I would have done. I would have been furious. I would have been sad. And I was like very vindictive. So I'd be like, fuck these guys. I'm never going to listen to them again or see them again. Like what was going on with you? Did you talk to them at all? Did you ever check in on them or listen to them again? Like, where were you at that time?
No, I think it was just too painful, because we had lived our whole lives together. I mean, you forget, like, Hopesfall had only existed for about 4 years to that point, but our friendships had been lifelong. So, not only was I not in the band anymore, I lost my friends. And that was as painful to me as not being in the band.
Yeah.
Because there was, at least my recollection of it, there was kind of a break, and we didn't speak for quite a while. And I kind of focused on, just going to work and hanging out with my girlfriend at the time, kind of just aimless, like I don't know what to do, because, when you're that young, the band was everything to me at that stage in my life. It was my life. I had devoted all of my energy to it, and then it's just gone. And, I felt like the rug was kind of pulled out from under me. And I had a lot of soul searching to do. And a lot of it was, working on myself, I think, trying to be a more cooperative person in the midst of a group setting. And, and that's part of being in a band. Do you know what I mean? And,
oh yeah.
I own a lot of that, but, I mean, it wasn't perfect on either side. And, eventually, I got the offer to try out for Celebrity, and I jumped at the chance because I was a huge fan of the band. And,
is that how you ended up out in Nashville?
Yeah. They asked me to learn the songs by ear, and then they said, "Oh, and by the way, we want you to come out, practice with us for 5 days, and then we're going to fly to New York to play a closed showcase for Atlantic Records." So that was my first time playing in Celebrity, was to Atlantic Records. So
great rebound.
Yeah. But, honestly, that lifeline came right at the right time. I got that phone call, and that's what I needed at that point in my life. I needed to shake things up. I needed to get out of Charlotte. I needed to face my own ego, and own some of that. And I think moving to a place where I knew nobody, I had no job, I was living in our drummer's living room, that opens your eyes real quick and takes some of those security blankets away really quickly. And you are you wherever you go. But at the same time, having a fresh start with new people, I think, was the thing that I needed at that time. And it helped me grow and helped me mature. and be a little more reasonable about some things, I think.
That's good. Yeah, I think I was a bit of a terror in bands probably up until 2015. I don't know, because I was high or drunk all the time, and I just always wanted it to be my way or no way. So
Yep.
I would push a little too hard. I would think, instead of focusing on the collective of us playing together, I would think, oh, we need to sound like this or we need to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just like, I think if I was in a band now, I would approach it much, much better than I did in the past.
Yeah, I feel that. My issue is I get wrapped around the axle, and what I mean by that is like I'm like a hyper detail focused person and
Yes.
a perfectionist to a really bad degree in some ways, and I just get stuck on something, and if it's not right to me, then it's not right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think at a young age, I didn't realize that about myself, and I also didn't know how to talk about it or to express it in a way that was constructive. I could just get hung up on the smallest detail of something that we were writing, and I think now that I've matured, now that I've played with other people, I'm much more open now to wherever the song wants to lead, whatever needs to happen. I let that play itself out versus trying to like square peg round hole something. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's a long, tough, hard lesson to learn.
Oh, totally, man.
Yeah, or it was for me at least. But Celebrity. Now this is a good band that Josh turned me on to, actually. How long were you in the band, and what kind of circles did you play in? Was it like more mainstream type shows or scene type shows or both, or like what was the deal?
Yeah, I mean, when I moved to Nashville 2003, the band had a lot of major label interest, and that was super exciting to me because that felt like, man, maybe we could actually do this and not have to like be in a van. And it was an alternative band, which is the kind of music that I truly love and my first love, I guess I should say. And I just thought they had a really unique sound. No one was sounding like that around then, kind of that mix of 80s and 90s. And
yeah,
that was a real kind of sweet spot for me. But I don't know, the Nashville scene then was really interesting. There were a lot of really good bands. I'd call them all indie or alternative. So we were playing shows with a lot of those bands. The scene in Nashville was really strong. The shows were well attended. There was a lot of buzz in Nashville for a lot of the bands with like bigger labels. It was a really neat time to move here. It felt very like you were a part of something. The tours we got on, unfortunately, they just weren't the right tours for us. We were touring with, the first tour we did was with Hopesfall and Every Time I Die, and it's like, and we're
Whoa,
like this.
now hold on a second.
Yeah.
Was that weird?
Oh, it's super weird.
Did you like give them the stink eye when you walked by them and shit?
I mean, we were on speaking terms at that point, but we weren't chummy, I would say. I wasn't ignoring them.
When they played something off Satellite Years, would you nudge someone and be like, "I wrote that"?
I would totally do that, Keith. Immediately.
I would not be above that.
This is what was weird about it. We were the opener. No one knew who Celebrity was outside of Nashville and Atlanta and Charlotte, because I was from Charlotte, except these major labels who were wanting to sign the next big band or whatever. But, we would open the show and just play to a sea of hardcore kids that the majority of them didn't know the touch points of the kind of music we were trying to write. They didn't know about Failure or Catherine Wheel or, any of these bands that we really loved. So it was a lot of blank stares on that tour. But I think what was just more unusual for me was like opening these shows to, and I don't mean this the way that it sounds, but I was opening shows to my own fans. Do you know what I mean? It's like they were coming to see Hopesfall. I was an active contributor to that band, but I was no longer in the band. So it was an interesting kind of juxtaposition to be the opener and to be playing the style of music that a lot of them just aren't into. And that's okay. It's not a slight to them. There's just not their vibe.
Yeah.
And then, Hopesfall goes on and they go ape shit, so it's kind of like, It was a weird. That was a weird tour. You know, we got jumped on that tour in Salt Lake City, and we had to cancel the rest of the tour because I had a fractured jaw and like.
Why did you get jumped?
Oh, it's a long story, but essentially, you know, there were a bunch of straight edge kids, and you guys probably know this. The Salt Lake City scene was pretty.
Rough.
Pretty violent and rough.
Yeah.
And the guys in Celebrity, they didn't grow up in the hardcore scene. They don't know anything about it. They like alternative rock, and that's what they're into. They respect the music, and they obviously had listened to Hopesfall before they had asked me to come out. But you know, my bassist Jesse, there were some guys picking on this kid, and he kind of intervened, not violently, and these dudes didn't like it, and then it just turned into just a brawl outside of the club, and Lance had nearly had a concussion. I had gotten kicked in the side of the head, so the ligaments in my jaw were torn, and
good Lord.
So yeah, that ended that tour pretty quickly. But I will say this, like, it was a neat experience because we would play every night, and all the bands would watch us. Like, they would sit side stage and watch our set every night, and that always stuck with me. You know, like, Hopesfall, Every Time I Die, The Beautiful Mistake guys were all right there, you know, watching us play.
Because I've had the opposite happen. I remember my first band. I finally got in a band, and I was like, yes. And some of my friends in like a bigger band came to see us, and I was like, oh wow, they're here. And we start our first song, and halfway through, I look, and they're gone.
Oh man,
they went to stand outside. I was like, oh man,
oh yeah. And they see you say, oh, nice set, man, nice set.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, thanks. Oh, and to add insult to injury, every single person at the show messaged me or texted me or called me to ask, who was the band that opened before you?
Oh,
and I was
man.
like, I don't, and like by the fifth time, I was like, their name is fucking, you know, and I would give them the name. Like, so these are the things I remember.
Who was it?
Holler Wild Rose. Yeah. It was fucking Holler Wild. Yeah, we all love fucking Holler Wild Rose. Okay, they were good. I'll give it. Yeah, they were good. They were good. I don't know. I guess they were better than us. It's fine.
Oh man,
it's fine. I'm over it, as you can see. Wow. So, man, that's a crazy like life test situation. Like, you're not in Hopesfall anymore. You're opening for them. And then you watch them play music you wrote.
Yeah, and then kill it in merch sales. Yeah. Yeah. You know, man, I'll put it this way. I needed to be humbled. Okay. And that was the most humbling thing for me, was that. And you know, part of it too is you're young, and being in a band plays to your ego, right? And your ego just eats that shit up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sugar to your ego, and you're just like, I'm so and so, I'm in this band. It becomes your identity in a way. So having to strip that away and find my niche in Celebrity, right? Because that's its own transition. I'm learning new people. I'm learning how to play a new style, while also seeing someone play parts that I wrote. You know, I needed that at that point in my life, you know, and that's not easy to admit, but I did. And it was the best thing for me at that period of time, because in a way I was learning something about myself through that experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I chose to allow the learning to happen, I could have rejected it, but what I wanted to do is say, well, how can I deconstruct what led to this, and how can I not bring this to Celebrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my approach in Celebrity was different from a engagement standpoint. A person, I can't change my personality, but I wanted to come at it from a different angle. And so yeah, it was just a great learning experience, even though it was painful.
That is a good perspective, and a healthy perspective to have at that age, because I don't even think I would have been capable of that at that age. But I'm going through a lot of that now, a lot of self-discovery, changing, self-improvement type stuff. And I tell myself that a lot of things that happen are to squash my ego because it was out of control for a long time and got me into a lot of trouble and still does sometimes.
We're all, we all like to have our ego stroked. We do. I mean, it's part of the human condition, but
Yeah.
I think, when those big life scenarios smack you in the face, right? It's like, sometimes you got to learn how to take that punch and say, all right, I'm going to try to learn something from this, as difficult as that is,
Or in your case, learn to take that kick to the face.
Yeah, man, that
is fucked up.
That dude knocked me out. I don't even remember it happening.
Where'd you wake up?
I woke up on the ground. There was a lot of yelling. We were in a big open parking lot, so there was nowhere to hide or nowhere to run to. My first memory, I believe it was Josh from Beautiful Mistake, was like on top of me, like shielding me. And
Whoa.
I think he drugged me across the concrete in between a van and trailer just to give us some obstacles to put between us and all these dudes. And then the next thing I remember, just the cops showing up, and all those dudes had fled by then, obviously. But they popped me and I think Lance into the back of an ambulance and sent us to the hospital. And they did some X-rays, and they're like, "You're just going to have to basically have a liquid diet for the next month."
Ugh.
And that was pretty much, okay, this tour is over. If I can't eat normally, like, there's no way I can play a set every night. So
yeah,
you could just become an alcoholic, like just drink beer every night.
Oh God, can you imagine what your stomach would feel like?
I don't have to imagine.
Yeah.
Oh man, are you like hungry all the time when you can only drink liquids?
Just had smoothies all the time. It was fine. It was weird. That's one of those weird things that happened in my life that doesn't feel like it really happened. If you know what I mean. It's like, did that happen?
Yeah.
I have a lot of those.
I was gonna say, Keith, my spleen thing is like that. That's like where like somebody's like, "Oh, you lost
Did you
your
have
spleen?"
surgery or something?
I fell skateboarding when I was 16 and I ruptured my spleen. So I went into the hospital and had to get, I went in because, I told my mom, I was like, "Mom, every time I lay down, I'm seeing stars." And she was like, "Here, just get in the car." And we went there, and I remember the nurse said, "Let me just do," like, it was the triage nurse to decide whether I was going to get admitted or not. And she was like, "Why are you here?" And I lifted up my shirt, and my whole abdomen was like black and blue. And I was like, "Well, I got hit on the side. I was skating and I fell on a handrail." And she was like, "Okay, let's take it." And she put the blood pressure cuff on me, and she took it off. And she was like, "Hold on a second." And she went and got another one. And I was like, "What is she doing?" And my mom was like, "I think she thinks the blood pressure cuff's wrong. She's going to go get another one." And she came back and she was like, "Okay, well, your blood pressure is 60/40. So we're going to go ahead and have you get examined and get a CAT scan, and you're probably going to be in surgery." And I was like, "Okay." Like, but I was
no time to contemplate it.
Absolutely not. And I was in intensive care for, I forget the number of days. So I was in intensive care, I think, for 3 days, and in the regular hospital for 3 or 4 days.
Dude.
But I remember, when I woke up, my sister was on vacation in North Carolina, and it was kind of like a scene out of a movie. I woke up and my whole family was standing there, like all my sisters, my friend Anthony was there, like my mother, my stepfather. I'm like, "Hi." And they're like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "Well, I'm here." So
Did you think you died?
I don't know. I'll be really honest. They gave me that pain medicine button, with Dilaudid in it, or I forget. I think it was Dilaudid, but I didn't really feel much of anything, except when I coughed, because because it was an emergency surgery, they couldn't do the what do they call that when they go in with the teeny tiny incision? I forget the name of it, but
laparoscopic?
That exactly. They couldn't do that. So I have a scar that runs from my sternum, like right below where my solar plexus is, to under my belly button. And so they opened up my entire abdominal cavity, and so just moving around hurt a lot, and coughing was like excruciating. I remember I went to school and my teacher was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's my cough pillow." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "I have to hold this on my stomach when I cough because I had surgery." And she's like, "Oh, okay." But I do remember the thing that kind of really like made it seem like surreal was I said, "Oh, how many stitches do I have?" And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, I had like surgery, so how many stitches do I have?" And she goes, "I think there's 160 something internal." She goes, "But we closed you up with staples. You have 13 staples, I think." And I was like, "What?
Oh my God, man.
Wait, like staples?" Like as a 16-year-old, I didn't know what she was talking about. I actually still have, even around like the main scar on my stomach, I have the little dot scars on either side. So, but
That's crazy.
Just thinking back on it, unbelievably, like it seems surreal. Like even just telling the story now, it's like, fuck, man, that really happened to me. Like that's insane. And when I tell people now, and I teach middle school math, and when I tell kids, like they always do, like we to get to know you, like icebreaker things.
You tell them about the surgery?
I always do. I always do. I always do like something like, I've been skydiving. Like that game, like Two Truths and a Lie. So you tell two truths, and then one of them's a lie, and the people have to figure out which one's the lie. So I always go like, I've been skydiving. I have 5 sisters, and I lost I don't ever say spleen because like 6th graders are like, you what? Like I lost an internal organ when I was skateboarding, and they're like, that's the lie.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like,
Yeah, right.
Nope, that's the truth. I ruptured my spleen skateboard. I broke four ribs and ruptured my spleen. They're
That's
like,
insane, man.
holy shit. They're like, Mr. Doctor. And they always say, can we see the scar? And I'm like, I'm not taking a dress shirt off in front of 11-year-olds. Are you out of your... I'm like, there's cameras in this classroom. I was like, you know what? One day when you're older, I will show you the pictures of when because I remember when I came home, my mom took a picture of me, and it's kind of scary because like I'm bigger now. Like I'm like almost 200 pounds. And I think after when I came home and I was in recovery, I think I dropped down to like 122 or 125 or something like that. I was definitely under 130 pounds, and it was it's actually, when I see the picture, it kind of makes me like wince a little bit. I'm like, oh my God.
How long before you reconnected with the guys from Hopesfall again, and how did you end up playing with them again?
Yeah, well, we did a series of reunion shows. God, that's been 10 years ago already.
Was that run of a couple shows with the original vocalist in 2010-ish?
Yep, that was with Doug and Pat, our second bassist, and Chad moonlighted on a couple songs, who is our third bassist. Yeah, so we did those shows just kind of as a one-off, 2 shows in a row. And it was mainly because Code 7, which is an amazing band from North Carolina that was highly influential on us.
Oh yeah.
They this club Ziggy's, which was like this amazing club in Winston-Salem, where I've seen like every band in the world, I feel like I saw play there. It got torn down. Wake Forest University bought the property, and I think it's like a parking lot now. But the original owners of Ziggy's, the club, decided to reopen a new club, and they approached Code 7 about doing a reunion show. So then Code 7 approached us about doing a reunion show with the original lineup, well, almost original lineup of the band, the No Wings lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So we did those shows in 2011. Rewinding before that, I mean, we had mended the friendships way prior to that. We were hanging out anytime I was visiting home. Probably, I'd say starting around 2005, 2006, we started to hang out quite a bit again. But I guess the return back to the band to write new material, they put out Arbiter, which is a really great record.
Oh yeah.
And Dustin played guitar on that record with Josh. Dustin's an amazing guy. I love that dude. Great player. Dustin basically said he didn't want to do it anymore. It was amicable. I think it was just a time thing and a life thing. And so I got a random phone call from Josh, which isn't unusual. I mean, we keep in touch and text quite a bit, but I knew it was different because he's like, I'm going to patch Adam in. And I was like, I wonder what this is about.
Were you scared because of the previous phone call from Josh?
No.
That's good.
I knew that it felt like they were very quickly. It felt like, they were going to ask me to come back. It's tricky because I live 7.5 hours away, and
Right.
It's not an easy drive. You have to go through the mountains. So it's a focused drive. It's a focused 7.5 hour drive. But, I told them my main concern, because I did have concern, because I'd been away from the band for a very long time as a writer. And I write different music now. I just told them, I was like, I just want it to be authentic, and I don't want to force it. If we get in the room and it doesn't feel right or it's not working, I don't want to do it, and not from an ego standpoint, just from the standpoint, I want it to be real. I'm not interested in rehashing things or trying to be what I was. I want it to be modern and whatever that looks like for us. And
yeah, so no flared jeans, no studded belts, no metal zone pedals.
Thank God, no.
That's done.
I actually have good gear now because I can afford it. That's like the
you have the gear you can afford.
Yeah. But so I mean that was the conversation, and if I can fit it into my life and it's comfortable, then, we'll take it project by project and see what makes sense. Right.
What was the first song you guys played together again? Do you remember?
I want to say probably April Left with Silence. That's usually one of the ones we like to kick off practice with, because there's a lot happening in that song and it kind of loosens you up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of an action-packed song, and some of our songs can be long-winded. So
it is so good. You mentioned that No Wings is the album for you, and that's still one I go back to a lot as well. That song especially.
Yeah. That was a fun song to write.
I actually looked up tabs online to see how to play it because I like the guitar in that so much.
Yeah, it's it's weird because Josh and I don't play the same thing a lot of the time. So, I don't know some of his parts, it's like, I could probably like try to figure them out, but we always kind of had that dual guitar kind of attack thing going on. But yeah, April's a fun one to play just because it's just like, it moves,
Oh yeah. And then there's a lot of excellent parts to that song.
But yeah, I mean, we jumped into writing pretty quickly. I mean, we played some of the old stuff just to refresh our memories, or at least my memory. But the first song we wrote back together happened super fast.
And was that Hall of the Sky?
No, that's number 2. The second one we wrote together. The first one, I can't reveal everything, but there's going to be some more songs coming. But the first one's a banger. I mean, it's really fast and action packed. It's kind of the antidote to Hall,
Yeah.
And it kind of felt right writing a really quick song. My first time back, it just kind of felt natural that way. And whatever chemistry we have, and we all kind of we just settled back into our roles. We all play slightly differently than one another, and I think we give each other space to do that. And I don't know, it just felt very easy. It kind of, for me, and I can only speak for myself, it was redemptive in a way, right?
Oh yeah. Because think about it, Josh calls you to say we're going to go ahead on the tour without you. All this stuff happens, and years later he calls you with Adam to say, we want you to come back. That's the full redemptive arc right there.
Yeah, it really is. And kind of how I think about it in my own mind is I've expressed this to them. They know this. Hopesfall, I did not close the book on Hopesfall. It was closed for me.
Yes.
Right? And moments like that in your life, you feel like you don't feel like you did lose control over that moment. It was no longer up to you. And there is a part of you that looks back and thinks, well, what if, what if that didn't change? Would I have stayed in Charlotte? Would I have continued to play in the band? Would we have continued to make the kind of music that we were making? And you kind of have that like little voice in your brain, but to come back to it, right? And to be welcomed back and to write new songs and to record those songs, it redeems that narrative in my own mind, because now I know what it's like. And the way I kind of frame this is, when you're young, your life, if you look at your life as a circle or a pie or something, there's not very many parts to it, right? I mean, maybe you're in college, maybe you have a girlfriend, maybe you're in a band. Those are your three things or whatever's going on. But then as you get older, that pie just starts to get divided up with all these other responsibilities that you've got to take care of. And for me, what it did coming back to Hopesfall was, yes, it redeemed that narrative for me, but it also put the band in my own mind in that pie chart, and it fills less of that pie chart than it did when I was in my 20s. And I mean that in the best way possible. It's not that it's not meaningful to me. I just have more life experience now, and I know, it occupies this section of the pie. It doesn't occupy this massive section of the pie. And kind of bringing that reality into focus and being able to see it from that perspective is, for me, very healthy, because it doesn't take up that space in my brain that it would have with the what if. And that's been really healing for me as well. It's just being like, okay, this is cool. It's not the be all end all for me. And, I've said to the guys, like, my pie is kind of like, here's my family, right? They're the biggest part of the pie. Everything else is icing on the cake. So if I get to do the band and we get to have some fun experiences and it fits within my lifestyle, cool. If it starts to be too much, that's cool too. Because it occupies less space. And I think it should, frankly, at the stage of life that I'm in. And I don't mean that to diminish it at all. It's not diminished. Like, writing those songs was very meaningful. And, putting out Hall, I really believed in that song, and just the reaction that it got was very, I don't know. It was nice. It was nice.
It's such a good song. It's a song I go back to a lot. It's a song I have a lot of emotion tied to for a few different reasons. And I'm very invested in Hopesfall, Ryan. And I have been since, I don't know. I mean, I loved the band in 2002 when I discovered them. And then there was a long gap. And then I fell in love with them again in 2017. And I was excited when I read that you were coming back to the band, and I really liked that when you posted something online and said, like, hey, I was messing around with this riff in 2015, and it ended up becoming a part of Hall in the Sky when I rejoined Hopesfall X amount of years later. I just thought that was a nice, like, arc of story right there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I always, tinker around on the guitar, and, you never know where an idea is going to go and where it's going to fit. And that one was just in the memory bank for years. And, when we got together, I was like, I've got this thing, and, it became something not totally different, but it was different than what I had heard in my head. What I heard in my head was a very, like, sparkly, twinkly thing, and then it just became this massive rock and roll riff, which is really cool. It's like once Adam put drums to it, it's like, no, this is a rock riff, dude, and we're gonna ride that wave, and then let me have some twinkles at the end, which is like the stuff that I really like to play. So
Yeah.
What's that thing from True Detective that I keep?
Time is a flat circle.
I was gonna say Reggie Ledoux says it like right to him. He's like, "Time is a flat circle, detective."
dude, that first season is perfect television, man.
It really is.
Please don't
really
get Keith
is.
and I started on it. We go off.
because
It's
I don't want to.
I think about that television show. Like, I think about it. Like,
I've watched it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, but I could go on and on. But with the remaining time, I want to make sure I mention In Parallel.
Yeah.
Another great band. Now, Fashioner is the record. It came out in 2020. And my favorite track was Deep Dark, which went right on my 2021 playlist because I didn't hear the album until recently. But
Nice,
let's talk a little bit about this band.
Yeah. So In Parallel is 3/4 of Celebrity. So it's Lance, who is the singer of Celebrity and guitar player, and Jesse, the bass player of Celebrity, and then me, and then Celebrity's longtime producer, who produced all of the Celebrity records, Mark Nash, is the 4th member. So we started tinkering around in 2011 with that idea, and we wanted to go, Celebrity was kind of the bridge between 80s and 90s and, alternative rock with big guitars, but kind of 80s vocals. In Parallel, we kind of wanted to push further into, the more gothic influences, frankly, the bands that have inspired us, like The Cure and Nine Inch Nails, and, even like Tears for Fears and some of the bands that, influenced us when we were really young. And so we started figuring that project out and self-released an EP called Broken Codes in 2018 that we did ourselves. And we did a small pressing of vinyl on that. And then quickly started writing Fashioner and really felt like Fashioner was special. When we were writing those songs, they were just happening really quickly. And anytime that happens to me, it's a good sign. And so we made that record in my basement, where I'm sitting right now. I've got a small little project studio in the house. So we were able to spend as much time on it as we wanted because there was no clock ticking. And so we made the record in here. Mark produced and engineered it. And towards the tail end of making that record, Mark basically asked, I want to come into the band full time and be a member. And we're like, totally, you're in. We finished tracking and recording everything. And then it came time to have the conversation for mix. And we were just like throwing out like dream case scenarios of people we would love to mix it jokingly.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark was like, all right, he's like, there's some guys here in town that I know who are really good mixers. I'll talk to them. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. Well, unbeknownst to us, Mark blind emailed Ken Andrews. With 2 of our songs. And, Ken's top 10 for me, period. Like,
oh yeah.
Not only as a musician, but as a mix engineer, his records sound amazing. And so Mark just found his email and emailed him, and Ken wrote us back and was like, I'll mix it.
Whoa.
So Fashioner was mixed by Ken. That process was amazing. He was super efficient, like would get us like tracks within 2 days. I mean, it was like, boom, here's the mix. What do you think? And I mean, I'm not joking. Like I've picked apart everything I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
The mixes that Ken sent back, I had to find things to make up. Like I was like, this mix is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about this. It sounds exactly how I heard these songs in my head. And I mean, we were just over the moon. It sounds super cheesy, but to be at this stage in our lives where music's not our full-time gig anymore, it's something we're deeply passionate about and we commit ourselves to, and we spend a lot of time on, away from our families, writing these songs. to have it validated by Ken and to just have his work on something I made in my house, it was just like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like one of those things where it's like, that didn't happen. Ken didn't listen to our songs, you know? It's like,
I love that feeling, like, because I have that with the podcast too. I'll just Hail Mary, send someone a message hoping they'll come on, and sometimes they'll be like, yeah, and then they actually come on, and I'm like, holy shit.
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm kind of jealous of you, Ryan. You've had records mixed by Matt Talbot and Ken Andrews.
It doesn't seem real, man. Like,
That's like 2/3 of the Holy Trinity. Would have to think of who the third person is, but those two guys are it for me.
yeah, it's wild, man. And it's one of those things that like I have to pinch myself and remember that I've had those experiences, because it's easy to forget, you know, and take it for granted. But I feel like at this stage in my life, I just don't take things for granted. It's like, that was an amazing experience. And it was like one of those things we lobbed out into the universe thinking nothing would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, now I get to say that I worked with somebody that I've admired for 2 decades. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd probably be speechless if I met him. You know, I wouldn't know what to say. I'd probably totally geek out, you know? It's like,
I know I would. And the great thing about being involved with this stuff when you're older is it's not such a big thing or such a big piece of the pie, like you were saying. It doesn't have to be this choice, like it's the band or nothing, or it's this or that. It's just part of your life. It's just something you do in your life. And it's fun. There's not as much pressure. There's not all this tension.
exactly. You just get to enjoy the moment. And I don't know. It sounds, when I say it, I feel like I sound lame, but I honestly just feel incredibly lucky that I still get to make music. And, you know, even if only 5 people listen to it or 40,000 people listen to it, it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to keep making music and making stuff that brings me joy, and hopefully other people find something in it too. And I don't know, I just feel lucky that I've been able to do it for this long. If you would have told me when I was 18 that I'd be making music when I was in my mid 40s, I probably would have laughed at you. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it really, to me, it's a testament to our friendships in both bands. And that's something that's always been important to me, that the friendship is first, the band is second, that we support each other as individuals and give space to each other to live the lives that they want to lead. But I don't ever want the band stuff to ruin a friendship. And I think we're all at that stage in our lives where we have that perspective. You know, our friendships are more important.
Yes, that's our edict on this podcast too, Tommy and I, because friendship first, and it would be so fucking lame to fight over a podcast.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's just lame to fight over a riff, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, just fucking move on, dude. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Why are we all why are we worried about this?
The listener is not going to be like, oh, we should have went to the 7th fret, not the 3rd fret. Like,
exactly.
They're not going to be involved, and they're not going to be invested in that fight.
That was my riff, man. You know?
Folks, I know Hopesfall is going to have something coming out eventually.
Hopefully this year. Hopefully this year.
Hopefully this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to keep an eye out for that. We're going to see you at Furnace Fest, right?
You guys are coming.
I will definitely be there. Tommy will hopefully be there.
Well, I'm still working on, I work at a school and I would have to take some time off. I put in for it. It got denied, but hopefully with some staffing changes that are coming up in the next couple months, I'll be able to be there.
Awesome. Well, please come say hello. I would love to see you guys in person.
So Hopesfall, we're going to see at Furnace Fest. In parallel, are we going to be playing shows?
Well,
what are we going to be doing?
Right. We did get asked to play Beloved's reunion show in North Carolina with Code 7. So we're planning on doing that in October. So we'll be posting, I think tickets are on sale now for that show. The venue's called the Ramcat, Ramkat. So if anybody's in North Carolina that has listened to Fashion and wants to come see us, come on out. It'll be fun. And Beloved and Code 7 rip. So it's good. It'll be a good show either way.
Yeah, Code 7, another influential band in our hometown. I know they were highly influential for some of my friends.
Unbelievable band, man. Like they always made me want to level up and become a better band.
Yes.
And those are always the bands that influence others, and they're just nice people.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, you've written a lot of music that I enjoy, and Hopesfall is a very important band to me. Like I mentioned before, I'm very invested in Hopesfall. When I see a post or something coming up, I get very excited, and the band has carried me through decades of memories and all kinds of situations. And, thanks for doing what you do.
Oh, man, thank you. That means a lot, for sure.
Absolutely. Tommy?
Yeah, I was going to say, Ryan, I'm on the same page with you. Wings is where it's at for me. And it's one of those things that I go to the skate park every Saturday and Sunday with my daughters. And that's one of those things I put on my because I can only put stuff on my iPod that exists on my hard drive. And I'm always like,
that's awesome.
I have a ton of new music that I want to put on there. I'm just like, I'm going to go with the classics. And that's one of those things when End of an Era comes on, I'm like, fuck yes. I love that song so much. Like,
it's so fun to play, man. That's just a fun song to play. And that was a fun song to write. It happened really fast.
That's it. But I really appreciate you coming on, and especially with just talking about everything so openly and candidly. It's really nice to have people that come on and just don't give us cookie cutter answers. It's really nice to have a conversation with you, and I truly appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you guys giving me time, and super fun.
There you have it, folks. Ryan Parrish. That was excellent. I love talking to people from Hopesfall. I want to talk to the whole band as this goes on. And that was just a great conversation with Ryan. One of those conversations where I glance at the clock and an hour has already gone by. He was very candid and told the whole story and pieces of the story that we hadn't heard before that I was very interested in hearing because I'm very invested in Hopesfall. It was just awesome.
That was a really nice conversation. And I think the other part that I like about when Ryan does something that a lot of people don't do, he's very measured when he speaks. Like, he takes pauses and thinks about, like, I don't do that. I just fucking blurt stuff out. Like, he really will take a second and go like, okay, so what I was thinking was at the time, like, he really thinks through what he's going to say before he says it. And I think, being open and honest about just things that have happened that are, at the time were probably really, really uncomfortable. I think the line that hit me the most was he said something where he goes, and then I got that phone call. And I think getting that phone call that you're not in the band anymore is like, oh, okay, that sucks. But the way he put it was, these have been my friends. Like, Hopesfall was 4 years, but these have been my friends since I was a kid. Like, to lose your friends and the band that you were working with for a number of years in the same simultaneously, it has to be devastating. And
that part gutted me because I'm kind of going through something similar, not exactly, and I wish I could share all the details, but I can't. But yeah, and it's just, that part really hit me.
Yeah, that, and again, thank you to him for coming on and being just so, like you said, candid. It's just like, you don't get that from a lot of people, but for some reason on this show, we get that a lot, where people are just willing to talk about things that are uncomfortable or awkward, or bring up memories that they aren't necessarily the most comfortable talking about. And I think that speaks volumes about the way you talk to people. I think the way you ask questions and the way you kind of lead people in a certain direction and kind of you have a level of making people feel relaxed and comfortable and like, okay, like these guys seem chill. I'm going to talk about this. Like that is a skill unto itself. So,
well, I'm genuinely interested in people's experiences, and I want this to be the place where people can talk about things and feel comfortable. This is like the cool underground podcast where people come to really let it all out. Like Howard back in the day, you know?
oh yeah, Jesus.
Yeah. That's
Old
what this
school.
show is.
Old school Howard.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
like 1989 Howard.
no, that wasn't good. Yeah. I'm thinking like, I don't know, mid 90s before it was too mainstream and it was still kind of a cool underground thing to do, or I don't know, maybe I'm off base, but who knows? But listen, Ryan was awesome. And you know what else is awesome, Tommy?
What's that?
We got a couple emails speaking to people. I'm going to read some of that now.
Oh, nice.
Eric Edge wrote us. He says, Keith, Tommy, I'm enjoying the podcast tremendously. It brings forward interesting tidbits from some of my favorite bands and some awesome nostalgia. I recently heard you mention Centrifuge, so I thought I'd hit the Wayback Machine for some nostalgia. Oh yeah, he sent up like you can go to like that Internet Archive thing, and he sent a picture of Centrifuge, like the front page. And so he posted there, I posted there. Everyone check out Eric's YouTube page, Time Falls Near. Have you ever seen that page, Tommy? There's tons of great old band sets on it. Bands from our area, bigger bands. Time Falls Near is the YouTube page. Check it out. And he said he was inspired by us.
Get out, really?
Yeah, to dig up all this stuff and post it. A couple people have said that. Can you believe that we're inspiring people, Tommy?
No. You know what, though? I think we've talked about it on here where this was, I think people get the idea like, look, these guys are doing it. And this was an idea that happened outside of a bar. Like this was like, hey, like this is, let's talk about these things. Let's talk about those things. Let's tell this story. Let's have these people tell this story.
I got inspired to do it by seeing other people do it. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is a flat circle.
I wish we could have talked like half an hour about True Detective, but we were running out of time and I was getting nervous.
All right. Can I say one thing, though, about True Detective? I rewatched it. I think I said this to you on the phone the other day, or I texted it to you. But when we were talking about it last time, that scene where he kidnaps Ginger and he's like, he's pretending to be part of the biker gang so he can do that job with Ginger. I know he gets out of that chase, but I still was like biting my nails watching it. I'm like, how the fuck is he going to get out of this? Like he like leaves the back of that one house and then sees the cops coming the one direction. He turns completely around. I'm like, dude, he's fucked. He's so fucked. And in my head, I'm going, he gets away from this. He makes it out, but it's so well done. And I think there's another part in an episode, and I don't know why it hit me so hard, but it's when actually he's sitting with Ginger at the bar and him and Ginger on the one side of the booth, and they go to meet that cook, the guy that they're gonna exchange coke and meth with. So he's like, yo, we're gonna, we can get you a pound of this, we're gonna get you a pound of, like, we're gonna trade. The guy looks at Russ and says something like, I don't like your eyes. I can see your souls on the edges, or I can see your soul on the edge of your eyes. There's something wrong in there. And it's like, oh shit, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't know why that hit me as like because their conversation is so not what you would think a drug deal would be, or them kind of setting it up. And that show gets so heavy so quickly. And I love that. I love that idea of like just being philosophical about things in the moment.
Oh yeah, it's good. I've watched it multiple times. All right, more feedback here. Timothy J on Instagram says, I really love the podcast. I have learned so much about some of my favorite musicians that I wouldn't know if it weren't for you guys. So thank you for that. And thank you, Timothy, for listening. Yeah, I want to know about these guys. I want to know the stories. They're not out there. Or maybe they are, but I'm not listening. Oh, Tommy, you know how people always message me or message us and ask what the ending song is in the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Someone messaged me and asked what the beginning song is.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so Mitchell Kidd on Instagram. Oh, he commented on the Basement Years song on YouTube and said, awesome song, and I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for the Northeast scene. So, Mitchell, I'm glad you dig the song, and I hope that we can somehow at least play one show one day. We'll see. Anything's possible.
I love when people connect with something that I mean, so you've said this before, but like I don't listen to the show. Like we record it, you do all the editing. So by the time you're done with it, you're just sick of it. Like I don't listen to all the episodes. So when people connect with something like that, I'm like, oh yeah, we do play that in the beginning and the end every time. Like just forget. Like it's just not something that's on my radar. So remember, I disconnected my Instagram from Northeast Scene, so I don't even see the updates and stuff that come in.
That's you're probably better off because I'm doing a lot of DMing there. I think you were getting like a ton of notifications from me one time.
And this is how inept I am with like that kind of technology. You're like, go into the thing, click on the one that says settings, scroll down to the second, and I was like, oh, okay.
I had to help you log out of the Instagram account.
Yeah, because I had my Instagram and then Northeast Scenes like linked, so like I could switch accounts, but it got too much.
I think that's all the fan feedback I have. Yeah, it is. Wait, let me see if there's any new reviews. New review from Drew Barrymore. We know him. Here we go. Sitting under the learning tree. The Brendan Ekstrom episode brought me here because I've been such a huge fan of Circa Survive for over 10 years. I've heard that episode a few times now, and I'm still waiting for the Colin and Nick episode. Stay tuned. Yeah. These two kept me company on Mondays during the quarantine and continue to this day. Bands like Hopesfall and This Day Forward are now two of my favorite bands, and I've checked out dozens of different bands since. I've checked out a bunch of the YouTube videos too. A real treasure for anybody into the hardcore scene. So much personality in Keith and Tommy, and I can't wait to see where the show goes. Shout out Long Island. 5-star review. Thank you, Drew Barrymore.
Yo, my thing is if he hasn't watched the Korn Woodstock 99.
Yo, I tried posting that on our account, and I gave Phil Jameson a shout out, for showing it to us, and it instantly got banned.
Cold. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried. So, you know what happened? I was talking, Ed Hewitt, who we know.
Oh yeah, the BMX dude. Yeah.
Yeah, we met him like through the Instagram. Yeah. I made an agreement with him, but I realized I got the raw end of this deal because he mentioned Logan. Remember I talked about the movie Logan on the show?
Oh yeah.
We made a deal. He was going to watch Logan, and I was going to watch the 4-hour Zack Snyder director's cut of Justice League. So he watched Logan and he loved it. So I want to hold up my end of the bargain now. But now I got to watch a 4-hour movie.
I don't think I've ever seen a 4-hour movie.
Lord of the Rings?
I've never seen that.
You've never watched it?
No.
Bro, you have to. But Ed, I'm going to watch Justice League. It's going to take a long time, but I'm going to get started because I'm a man of my word. And, he watched Logan and he liked it. So there you go.
Yeah, I actually periodically exchange like bands with Ed, and I'll just send him stuff and be like, "Yeah, check out Ulcerate. They're fucking sick." And then he'll send me stuff back, and I watch it too. So
we're running out of time, so continue to write us northeastscene@gmail.com. Continue to subscribe to us on YouTube. Tommy, we can monetize our videos if we get over, I don't know what it is, 1,000, 10,000 subscribers, something like that.
Really? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But then would people have to sit through like a fucking Irish Spring ad before they watch it?
I don't care.
All right, fair enough.
That's their problem.
If it pays for the podcast fees,
yeah. If this podcast costs us nothing, that's going to make us happy, and it's going to make Mr. Costco Pants over here happy.
Oh shit!
So subscribe to us. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Write us northeastscene@gmail.com or write to us on Instagram. And if I miss it, I'm sorry. We get a lot of messages and stuff, and then I forget about stuff. I'm just constantly busy. I'm getting to everything I can, but know that I see it and that we love you and that we appreciate every one of you. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's without you guys, we wouldn't do. I mean, well, we would still do it, but it's nice to have no. It's nice to know there's other people on the other side listening.
Oh man, yeah, it's the best. It's the best. All right, well that's it. We're out of time. Thanks everybody for listening, and until next time.